Um, we are very happy to have Marie Newell with Neat and Nimble with us today. Marie is a seasoned graphic designer turned marketer who has worked behind the scenes for local maker players, including Joe Machens Dealership, Brookside, and Columbia College. So she has lots of great experience. She's a graduate of University of Central Missouri with a BFA in graphic design, and she's lived here for over a decade in Columbia, but then just real recently moved to Hermann. Earlier this year, she relocated her digital agency, Neat and Nimble, to Hermann. Sorry, I got ahead of myself reading here. And she's currently accepting new clients. So, Marie, I will turn it over to you so you can tell us all about branding and how we can do better with our businesses.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks everybody for tuning in. As Sherry said, I'm Marie Newell, and I've been a graphic designer, and I really kind of gravitated towards marketing early in my career, and so that's where I've spent the past decade working and kind of learning a lot. So before I get into how to build your brand one moment at a time, which is our topic for the day, I wanted to just kind of quickly even the playing field for everyone and talk about what a brand is not. So your brand is not your logo. It's not your website. It's not your tagline or your business cards. It's not even your name. It's not your testimonials or your online reviews. It's not your brick and mortar location. And it's definitely not your star employee or salesperson. So after going through that big long list of what a brand is not, what is it? So Chris Do, an Emmy Award-winning designer and director, recently published a interview that he did with Marty Neumeier, who is a designer and copywriter, and has helped companies like Apple and Adobe, Google build their brands. And he describes what a brand is in one of the most concise ways that I've ever heard. And he said, a brand is a result. It's a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. So when you're thinking about that, the brand that you're building is really the result of a culmination of all of your different efforts. And so it's the feeling, and it's this very intangible, almost fluid thing that's happening within each and every individual that is encountering your business. And so although we have the power to shape our brands, we ultimately don't necessarily have full control over them, and they can really take on a life of their own and really kind of build themselves as well. So no matter what stage of business your brand is in, today we're going to share some ways that you can brand one moment at a time and one customer at a time. So the first thing that I like to touch on is consistency. So this is a common theme that you hear when you are starting your business. How do you provide a consistent and reliable service or product? How can you stay consistent with your customer and what they're buying? This also overlaps and falls into like the design, which is where I really enjoyed spending my time. And that includes like the look and feel of your brand. So when people start talking about a brand, they really they associate your brand with a logo or the look and feel of something. And so on the tactical side, when you're creating a brand and you're building something, it's good to have consistency in the look and feel of your brand, which would include the colors that you use. It could include typography and font choices. This could include textures and patterns, iconography, and different icons and visuals. It can also include like photography and the style that you're looking for. So when you're building your brand, making those choices and kind of comparing them to your ideal look and feel of what you're trying to achieve can help you make choices along the way. And so working with a professional graphic designer, such as myself, there's lots and lots of graphic designers out there. But finding someone who really understands your style and what you're trying to achieve with your look and feel is really important. And so, but that being said, if you don't have, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to work with the person that you're wanting to work with, that doesn't mean that you can't have a consistent look and feel. I am a big proponent for just creating something and being consistent with it. And then when you do have the marketing budget to spend, the appropriate amount of investment on your brand, then you can update and change your look. It's okay to start with a logo that was sketched on a notebook, or sketched on a napkin, or designed by your family member or friend. Those are all good things, because then you're starting with something. And so if you have a look that you can get started with, then just being consistent and starting to show up in the many different ways that you're marketing is a good way to start building that brand and brand awareness. This could also include like the treatments that you're giving photography, or your product photos. If you have a certain filter that you're using to treat your photographs with before you post them to Instagram, using a consistent filter could help you create consistency in the way that you're showing up on social media. If you are a person, or your brand is all about like memes and GIFs, and that's one of like your communication styles, being consistent and showing up this, in a very similar way in the different ways that you touch your clients and make those impressions. And like if you use memes and GIFs and to build a huge Facebook following, that should probably be the style that you're using to communicate through email and through, signage in your brick and mortar, things like that. Another way to be consistent is through your voice and your messaging. There's a really great person that I am currently following everything she posts. She's a copywriter. Her name is Ashlyn Carter, and I'll put that in the chat. But she really talks a lot about how to use tone and specific phrases to create consistency in your messaging as well. And so the way that you name things, like your naming conventions, the length of how much text or copy that you're using in the different marketing things that you're doing can have a big difference for you. The stories that you're telling, like if you're talking about a transformation for a client, is that something where you're describing like every little detail about someone's, appearance, and then you start talking about, the difference that your skin product made? Or is it like, here's a quick little bio of this person's profile, here's a before and after picture? How you communicate and how you're telling those stories can really have an impact on how you're creating and building up that brand. And then also moving into like values and motivation. So when you're building a brand, you're going to have to make tough decisions sometimes. And I know everyone here has really had to make some tough decisions, I'm sure, this year, whether that be in their personal lives or with your business. And so remembering and kind of going back to the values that really started things, or like the values and motivation that you have on like where you're going, are what you're going to put each of those decisions along the way up against. And so there's a great example. So when you think of Apple, everybody knows Apple, right? They've done an amazing job over the years of building their brand. Their brand has an entity of its own. One single person cannot knock that brand down, right? So when you think of Apple, you think of iPads, iMac, iPhones. That's a perfect example of a naming convention that is, something that they're intentionally using to develop their brand. iPods, which don't even people don't sell those anymore. But all these different products start with the letter I. It's always lowercase, and the second letter is always uppercase. So that's a really subtle decision that has a really big impact over the years. And so when you're making decisions along the way, you're doing it one moment at a time, one decision at a time. And so it's important to remember that each little thing is going to build and build and build on its own. This also goes back to their values and their motivation. When you're thinking about Apple, you probably have ideas about privacy. We know that Apple protected a person's phone and didn't let the US government go see those records without proper warrants and things like that. They talk about privacy. Right now they're in the middle of doing some updates about apps and permissions as far as tracking goes. And so that decision actually got pushed back because it was going to have some adverse effects on the marketing and advertising on digital advertising through social media. But they are consistent with their motivation. They are known for wanting to have a high level of protection and privacy for their customers. And so that's a value of their company, and that is something that seems to be leading many of the decisions that they're making. So even though a decision to maintain a high level of privacy for their customers might not work out so well for some of the other mega brands in Silicon Valley, that doesn't matter to them. Their partnerships are not so strong with other companies that it reduces their privacy for their users or for their customers. So in everything that they're doing all along the way, they are building their brand. Now, that's just something to keep in mind. The style and strategy that you use. Go ahead, Sherry. Did you have a question?
I was just going to ask Stephanie to turn off her video because it's really
Sorry. Okay, so excuse me, that's all right. Give me a chance to give a drink too. So when you are thinking through your style and strategy about how you're reaching your customers and your marketing plan, those are the different opportunities that you're going to have that are going to help you, that are going to be opportunities in which you'll need to make decisions that will turn into building your brand. So do you have social media? I am a strong believer in social media can be a huge time suck, right? We all know that. So if it is not moving you towards your goals, and if it is not supporting your North Star, so to speak, and it's not keeping you on target and moving you forward towards what you're trying to achieve, don't do it. If it does make sense, then it also has to make sense on the back end for why you're motivated to do it and why you should start a Twitter account or an Instagram or a Facebook or a TikTok. There should be reasons behind what you're doing, and it should work towards building your brand. Otherwise, if it doesn't make sense, don't do it, right? That seems really straightforward. But when you're building your brand, it's going to be all these little decisions along the way that are going to have an impact on your brand that you're building and this conceptual, intangible thing that you're wanting to connect with your customers. So there's a multitude of ways that you're building your brand through moments with your customer. And so if you're looking for opportunities, which is, I'm assuming, part of why you tuned in today, I really encourage all of my clients to start to try to map out their customer journey. What are the different touch points that your customer has with your brand, in that you have the opportunity to make an impact with them and connect with them emotionally and connect with them sometimes physically holding something, or, just intellectually and giving them ideas or motivation or inspiration. And so that could mean social media, that could mean email and an automated system so that they receive a welcome message as soon as they sign up for your subscription list. It could mean that they receive a coupon for their birthday for a free or a discounted, I don't know, coffee or service. It could mean behind the scenes video that you take with your phone and post to your social media, or to your website, or that you share with them live. A couple weeks ago, we heard all about how to go live. And so who the face of that person, like the face of your brand is, and how you show up will all have an impact on how you're building that brand. Other opportunities for building your brand could include your point of sale, and the experience that someone has when they're making a purchase in person. That could also mean their experience on your website. If someone has, a really great experience and it's really easy to click buy now, and they know where the button is, that's a point in your client journey that gives them an impact and gives them an experience for how your brand interacts online, or in person. Ultimately, we're all working towards having a brand that is worthy of telling a friend about, because you can't replace word of mouth marketing. Word of mouth is the ultimate epitome of like branding, goodness, right? And so, but there are other ways that we can kind of strategically take opportunities and make decisions to have a positive impact and try to influence the way that someone experiences us. This could be through like influencer and affiliate marketing. Is your marketing strategy and your method for communicating out to a new network of people? Sorry, my dog is like getting under my elbow here. So it could be that you're marketing through social media and you have a team of advocates who have all experienced your product and are really excited about it and want to share with their network of people. I see this all the time with, I'm in the stage of life where all of my friends have little people in their lives, and hair bows. Oh my gosh, the hair bow trend, right? Everybody wants mama loves you if you've got a big old hair bow on your head. And so I see these trends where like moms are taking pictures of their kids with all these different hair bows. And that is the marketing channel for these brands. They don't have to spend money on Facebook ads if they have advocates who are sharing their message for them. And so that's one of those instances where like the brand is kind of taking on a life of its own because they have a program set up that encourages these behaviors. And so if you haven't already, take a look at The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I say that with like an asterisk on it. Watch with an open mind, but also keep in mind that there's some gaps in that story that's being told. But there are ways to influence and encourage certain behaviors from both your customers and your network of people that you know, to ask them to do something for you, whether it be having a little recommendation card in something that they purchased, to ask for a review. Ask for a review. If you want more online reviews, ask for them. If you need, like, I am not a proponent of, rewarding people, but in the same token, if it makes sense, then what about, you get a coupon for something if you leave us an honest review. You don't have to say a good review. Leave me an honest review. So I'm kind of skipping around on my points here, but another example of having a style and strategy for your brand is Marie Forleo. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of her on this call, but Marie Forleo, she has a YouTube channel called Marie TV. I like her because we share a name, but she has a personality that is it's unlike anyone that I've ever seen. It's very eccentric and very fun and very inspiring and motivational. And part of her YouTube channel is she interviews big, huge celebrities and different people, and then shares those interviews out with the world. And she does a great job of pulling out like quotes, and you see like different things appear on the screen. And some things like that. And then she also has a very fun and like graphic style to her. She's also very polished. And so all of those things are what I think of when I think of Marie Forleo. When she shows up on Twitter, it matches. So if you've ever had a time when someone has told you something about a brand or a person, this could be, just someone that you know, and you're like, what? They did what? Like, that doesn't sound like them. And you get that feeling of like rejection, like that doesn't match the information that I have about this person or about this company or something like that. That is when it's going against what you know as their brand. It goes against their brand concept. And so when we are building our brands, we're trying to create this entity and this feeling about who we are, what we do, who do we serve. And so all of those questions are questions that you want to answer at every opportunity, and try to let those decisions on like your bigger picture help influence and direct you on the different opportunities that you have for every time that someone's experiencing your brand. I feel like I'm saying the word brand so many times today, but that's what we're here to talk about, right? So how can you have impactful moments? Where are those opportunities to make the most impact with the least amount of effort or the least amount of resources, right? So if someone sees your social media post, first of all, if you have social media, what is it doing for you? Is it a place where people are getting customer service and you have someone who is on social media and responsive like that, and they are quickly responding to inquiries? Or is it a place where someone can go to find updated pictures about your inventory and updates of like what's coming in, what's new, what products do you have this week that are different than last week? Or is it a place where someone's going to get inspiration and feel excited? Or is it a place where someone's going to learn something? And so like letting something that is as simple as like, what does someone get when they show up and you show up and you're having a connection? What are they getting out of that? And what is that feeling that they're leaving with? Can help guide you. What is the first instinct that someone has whenever they open your email? Are they excited when they see your email show up in their inbox? Are they like pumped and they're so excited about opening that thing that they just can't wait to see what's inside? If not, okay, the email's maybe not your gig, and that's okay. So you don't have to show up in every single place. You want to pick the areas that you shine the brightest and that maybe come the most easily to you, and then get help with the rest. If someone is walking into your store, and if someone's thinking about your storefront, do they smell something? Do they see something? Do they get goosebumps because it's freezing inside? Like even something as subtle as like, oh, I don't want to go to that restaurant, I have to bring a jacket. That's something that's a brand moment without people necessarily realizing it. Or, oh, I don't want to go to that restaurant because it's like dark or something. Like if you're known to be a dimly lit place, that's okay if that's your brand. But if that's not what you want to be in the minds of your customers, then maybe it's time to make a change. Maybe you need to get different lighting. Maybe you need to, open the shades and open the windows, things like that. So every opportunity and every sense that someone gets when they're experiencing your brand and making a connection with you is something that is going to leave a seed and kind of lay a brick, so to speak, in building your brand. There's a really great brand that is new this year that is a personal favorite of mine because it is actually my cousin. She is a music artist, but she is also a thrift shopper. And so she has started her own little business and sells secondhand clothes on Instagram. And so something that she does an amazing job with is showing up consistently for the drops that she's making. And so every Wednesday, I know that I can go to her Instagram and see new, fresh items that are available for a sale. And so she's consistent. It has a consistent style. I know that her Blazer and Birch brand, that Instagram handle, is the one that has business wear on it. And I know that her Thrift and Thistle brand, that Instagram, has her casual wear on it. So I know what I'm going to get when I get there. I know what to experience. I know what to expect. And so she has done a great job of crafting this brand and building it one moment at a time. And so in that, if you find an item that you like, you comment sold, and then boom, like you get to win the item essentially, and you pay her through Venmo, and then she mails it to you. And it's a very simple transaction. I don't have to go to a website. I know if it's in stock or not. Like, I know how to buy it. And so all of those little questions about like how to purchase something are already answered. So it's an easy yes for me. Plus, I don't like to shop, right? Don't like shopping. I love getting new stuff, but I don't like shopping. I don't like that experience. I don't like walking around trying to figure out what's in style and like what looks good on my body. So like not for me. But this, where it's like, oh, this is either for me or not for me, and there's only one of them, so I better get it. She's already created urgency. And so I know that if I want to buy something, I have to get it right away. Then when I get it in the mail, I know that it's hers because she has a sticker on the outside. It's a little 2-inch circle sticker, and it is her brand colors. It's her font. And so it looks and feels like that brand. Great opportunity. It's just a little sticker. It's like 25 cents, right? Then inside, when I open that package, I rip open the bag and it's all waterproof. So like good experience there, even if it gets here on a rainy day. And inside there's a postcard inside there, and it has a picture of her and a message about what your money goes to. And so that's another opportunity. And it's just a thank you note. She handwrites on it with like a metallic Sharpie. And so I know that when I get when I get my item, this past time it was a dress, but when I get that from my cousin's brand, I know that I'm gonna have a handwritten heartfelt note from her. Now, is that something that can be done for Amazon? Probably not, right? But that's a different experience because it's a different brand, because it has a different feeling to it. You know, I know that if I get 2 days shipping for my Prime account, that it's going to be there in 2 days, rain, sleet, snow, whatever. I also know that I have a tracking number, and I can see it go from Chicago to St. Louis to Hermann. While Thrift and Thistle, when I order, I do get a tracking number, but she might have dropped it in the mail on Thursday. It might be Saturday, and I'm okay with that. But it's different experiences, and so those are different moments and different ideas about a brand. So
What's her name?
Her name is Kate Gossage, or no, Packer. She just got married. So but her account, I'll throw it in the chat over here. Thrift and Thistle and Blazer and Birch, and her artist name, her stage name is KG Lillian. So she has many brands, so to speak, but they all feel like her. So I'd like to open it up to questions. I've talked a lot and said the word brand probably a million times. What kind of questions does everybody have today?
So I love how you described that brand is like the overall experience and what you want to get across. And I totally get there and get that. And it depends on what you want to do to what specific things your brand is. But on the other hand, can you give us like a short list of things that every business should at least consider or have as part of their brand? I mean, I know
Yeah,
one thing alone is not your brand, it's the
right.
overall
It's
feeling.
everything.
It's
It's
like,
everything.
what? Like,
If
bam, bam,
you,
bam.
yeah, if you had a checklist, I would go back to those things that we said, like a brand is not, right? But you're going to need these things at a certain point. And so if there was going to be a checklist, I would start with the things that are going to appear and be something that someone is visually seeing. And so that would include a logo, that would include a color scheme, that would include a pattern or a texture, something that is visually creating some interest, and then a graphic style. So when I say graphic style, I mean, do you have graphics that are created on a computer, or are you using photography? Or is it a combination? It could be icons that you downloaded for free and got something that's royalty free, or it could be a highly stylized, professionally done photography set for your product or for yourself. If you have images and photography, your business or your place of business, maybe that makes more sense. And so those items combined with your messaging and your tone and kind of how you're talking to people, I'd say are the bare minimum things that you're going to need to decide upon and possibly get help with, or find, there are free online resources. But if you can work with a designer, then I always kind of go for that too.
Right. So, and most of the businesses that we work with at Women's Business Center are smaller and kind of getting started. So
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to like those free resources to work towards working with the designer.
Definitely.
So what are some of those free resources? And you all chime in with questions here too.
Yeah, so Canva is a great place to look and get started. There's also design resources on Etsy where you can go find pre-made, designs and print designs and things like that. Um, there's honestly, I don't use them because I do design, so I don't have a long list of those, but Adobe has some pretty great options for color and picking color schemes, where you can go and kind of give it a guide as far as what kind of color scheme you're looking for, and then select oh, I like this purple, and then here's 2 or 3 colors that go with it if it's a triad color scheme, or if you're wanting something more contrast or analogous, and so it has some tools like that as well. There's also a really great social media account called Color Seeds. Let me do a quick search on that. Design Seeds, that's what it is, where you can find pre-made color schemes. It's all based off of a picture, and then to the side of the picture there's somewhere between 4 to 6 colors that are all in a very nicely planned color scheme that's professionally done. That's kind of a passion project that started in 2009 from someone who just likes color and wanted to practice. So that's a great resource as well if you just want to pick something up off the shelf. There's also some royalty-free resources for photography. So unsplash.com is a great resource. They encourage people to attribute, if you use the photography, but it's not required. And so if you're looking for some stock photography, that's a great resource. Freepick.com. Honestly, if you do a quick search for royalty-free images or royalty-free photography, I'm sure there's a wealth of online websites that would be resources for you. It's good to check out the licensing and just make sure that you understand if you need to give credit where credit is due, or if it's something that, like, if you have the opportunity to donate or, things like that. There's also Creative Market is another resource where if you're looking for some free assets, they have something, they have, I think it's like 6 new goods every week. And you can go get some really fancy designer fonts. Google Fonts is a great resource if you're looking for something that's going to be safe for the web to design with. Like if you're going to primarily be marketing yourself online, then I would encourage you to pick like a web safe font for your branding and for like the different things that you're doing, even in print. And so
I don't
that's
even know
another
what
great
that
resource.
means, a web safe font.
So,
What would an unsafe
So web,
font be?
yeah. So some fonts don't appear online. They don't, you have to like get them, you have to like force them to work, or sometimes they have to be images instead of an actual font that you can highlight, which can cause challenges for accessibility. And so if you're using images to put words on your website, that's a no-no for accessibility. And so it would be most helpful to use a web safe font that's kind of already available, or depending on your licensing, turn a font that you're using that's maybe not already a web font into a web font so that it can be loaded online. So yeah, there's some really, really small differences, but can be important.
Yeah, definitely. So when somebody is first starting out and developing their brand, is it more like, do they go towards what they want it to be, or is it more important to really figure out who your target customer is and go towards what they would want it to be?
That's a great question. So, and I lean both ways. It depends, I think, on what the brand is going to be. So if it is a entity and a business that is going to be more, the face of the business is the business. So for example, a restaurant that is centered on the type of food that it serves, not the chef, then I would say that it needs to be centered around what the customer is looking for. If it's going to be centered and focused on a chef and what this specific person brings to, like, that's their difference maker, so to speak, then I would say that it needs to be about that entity, that person. So if someone's doing a one-man show and they don't really plan on either having help, or they're going to hire part-time help to maybe help with a few things, but they plan on like running everything themselves and always being the center and the focus of their business, then I would say that it should probably be more about that person, because it needs to represent them because they are the brand. While if it's an agency or a larger organization, if you think of like Veterans United, Veterans United is not any one of their specific employees. It is an entity all on its own. And so knowing kind of what you're trying to achieve and what you're working towards, again, should probably be part of that decision-making process so that you can work and build towards that. So yeah, I'm going to not answer that directly and say that it's probably a case-by-case basis.
Awesome. So who else has questions? I've been monopolizing the questions.
This is Jennifer. Good morning.
Good morning, Jennifer.
I don't have my video on because I am driving, but great presentation. Thank you so much, Marie.
Oh, thank you.
So kind of go along with Sherry's last question there. I sometimes see when someone is starting something new, they'll post on their personal Facebook page, kind of some design ideas, or help me choose from this color scheme or this logo or that. talk about that. Is that something you recommend? Is it helpful to get some engagement from your friends and followers in on that? Does it create some excitement, or do you think it hurts the overall brand by having that out there too soon?
Oh, great question. So I'd say that it probably depends on who they're asking. So if someone is asking their friends and family for advice, it you have to kind of take that advice with a grain of salt if they're not your target customer. So if they are not the people that are going to be buying from you, then their opinion is just that. It's just an opinion. It can be really helpful when you are looking for a specific answer. Like if you've made your decision, but you need some backup to say, yes, this is good, or like you're making the right decision, which is something that we all feel, especially when we think that, when it feels like we're making decisions in a vacuum, it's good to get some feedback, but knowing where that feedback is coming from and like how much to value that feedback is probably an important question to ask before you ever ask for that. If it's a brand that like your friends and family are going to be the people that are purchasing from you, by all means, ask away, get some feedback on that. If it is something where like they know that you sell it, but they're never going to buy from you. For example, like if you own a motorcycle shop, my parents own a motorcycle shop, and maybe one other family in our immediate family like rides motorcycles. So like even if they asked an opinion of their family members and friends, or like probably not their friends because their friends ride, but like if they ask opinions of their family, then like it's helpful, but it's not necessarily going to give you the right kind of feedback that you should base a lot of decisions on. Like if someone says that they don't like it, but they're not the ones that are going to be buying from you, then that's probably a good thing, not something that you want to look for their approval because they're not your target market. So that's, I think, where I would kind of go with that is it would be better to ask followers who are supporting your brand through purchases and through connectivity and advocating for you and sharing the good news than to ask like a random person on the street. So great question.
Who else? Joan, I always love your fun and whimsical brand because that's what you do with your yard signs, like down to your background.
Yeah. And that's something you can count on her for. You know that it's going to feel fun and whimsical and have a lot of textures and patterns and colors. That's something that is her brand.
Right. And very
what
fun.
What kind of challenges does everyone have? How do you feel stuck?
So I'm launching my business, and on social media, like I do have brand colors, but when I pick photos or like you mentioned on Instagram, what filters you apply, like I feel like I'm not, I see other, and they're like the marketing firm that, everything looks really good, or I see other people in my industry and they've hired it out and it looks very consistent, but I'm having trouble creating that type of consistency. I mean, I'm using my brand colors, I'm using the fonts, but sometimes like not all the pictures always fall into that. So, I feel like I'm having trouble with that consistent.
Okay. So what I would advise is go to those accounts that like look like what you are trying to achieve and like you want to be like them, right? Like those are good things to have in your life and to like be able to point towards and say like, I want what they have. Like that's not a bad feeling. That's a really good feeling because then you know what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve. What I like to do, because I do this on the regular, is go back to their very first post. If they did not delete it, go back to their very first post and go look at what they used to do 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 months ago, everything changes and you're constantly evolving and building. It's never going to be like a one, like, oh, I made a decision and now we're going to go with that. If you look at the businesses that have been in business for a decade, 15 years, 20 years, 100 years, they don't look the same now as they did 2 years ago. They don't feel the same now as they did 20 years ago. They are evolving. And so that's where it's important to have like your North Star and your values and what's motivating you and like who your ideal target customer is in mind. Keep it in the back of your head or have it like on a visual board or on your desktop, and keep it in mind. But it's okay. Give yourself grace, because like the fact that you're out doing it means that you're already like 100 steps further along than the people who want to be like you, who want to get started, who want to try new things. And so like keep it in mind and have it kind of as a goal, like, oh, I'd like my post to feel more consistent. And every time that you're making a post, have that in mind, but then also like forgive yourself, and it's totally fine. And doing is better than being perfect. And so that's something that I'm doing with myself right now. I'm a person who can build websites and like doesn't have their own website done, right? And that's okay, because I can still do client work even though I don't even have my own website done. And like it's more important to do the thing than to like for it to be in this like perfect little world. And even the posts that they posted that look great or feel perfect to you, there's a good chance that whoever posted that was like, dang it, I forgot to fill in the blank, or man, I wish I fill in the blank. So like getting it done is better than like not doing it because it's not quite right. And you're going to get better every time that you make those decisions and with every opportunity that you see. And so, yeah, just keep doing it. Yeah. Also, if you'd like to talk after this, feel free to call me.
Other questions? So one I always hear like almost daily is that everyone is my customer.
No, they're not.
And anybody who has any marketing sense knows that yes, you will sell to anyone. However, it's your target market. There's a core group of people and you try and get in their heads as deep as you can. What are some of the tricks, advice? How do you figure out who your target customer is? How's that for a loaded question?
Yeah. All right, Sherry. So we're going to start another hour. So I'd say it kind of like what feels right. I kind of lead by gut instinct. Like if it doesn't feel right, or I'm going back a day later and I'm like, man, I don't know. Was that the right decision? Like, did I like how that felt? I kind of lean on those. Ultimately, like, is this person actually buying from you? Because you can want to help everybody under the planet and under the sun and give free advice all day long. But at the end of the day, like, we are in business to do business and to make a living and to try to achieve something financially. Finances is not the only motivator. Doing something that you love and that you're passionate about, like those are also motivators for a lot of us that are on this entrepreneurial journey. But at the end of the day, if you cannot keep your doors open and if you cannot sustain yourself or, your company, that might mean if you like supporting employees, that could mean, taking care of loved ones who maybe are struggling financially or need a job or need something to do. Whatever those motivations are and where those values are should be ultimately what helps you decide who your target market is. Because if you want to help people, you can have a brand and you can be an educator and never make a dime. So that's great too. Like if that's what fills your spirit and makes you feel good and gives you a reason to get up in the morning, then, you know, do that and you can have that business. But also know that like you're going to have to do something else to pay your bills, or have another means in your life, whether that be a spouse or maybe a rich aunt that, you know, gives you an inheritance. I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but ultimately, if you are not making if you're not making ends meet, or if you're not able to sustain long term, then there has to be some other plans that you're probably working towards. So yeah, make sure that your offerings align with your motivation to build your brand. Yeah. So
Awesome.
mm-hmm.
Anybody else has any branding?
I think when you go back to she was worried about her pictures not looking like another website's pictures. I think sometimes we want that image that someone else has, and that's not us. Like some of the accounting firms I look at, their web pages, and they're so fancy and they've got such a fancy building, and that's not my style. My office is in what is probably 100-year-old home used to be, and we've turned it into an office, and that's my style. When people come in here, you know, they're more at home. It's not a stuffy accountant office necessarily. So I think that's something to take into consideration too. What's your style? Their style isn't your style.
Yeah. And why do people love you? Like, is it because it's got to be because, you know, you feel very open, and it's like having something that's less corporate feeling and more homey. Maybe that's because like that builds that idea of like comfort and trust. Like I can open up to you and say like, hey, I've got this question. I don't feel dumb asking you a question, because you do feel maybe a little bit less formal. Like it's a little bit more of a casual environment. And so if you're ever trying to figure out like, oh, I want what they have, look internally though, and like and try to see yourself through your client's eyes and through the eyes of your customer, and see like what is it about what I have already that they really like, that they really love. I had a client tell me yesterday that he loves working with me because he can like give me a little bit and then I run with it. And so like I'm not a person that like, oh, I need every little detail. And so that's something that I'm trying to keep in mind moving into other relationships, because I really love working with this person. And so like I need to be that version of me for all of my clients. Like I want to be the person that they can rely on and that they feel they trust, they can hand it to me and I will take the ball and run with it. Not the person who needs a million questions answered and won't make decisions on their own. Like those are the things that like they see in me that I don't always see in myself. And so talking with your customers and talking with your friends and family, like, hey, what do you think I'm best at? Like, you know, what is the coolest thing that is, you know, that we already have. And if you have a sounding board, if you have employees, or for me, I have a part-time intern and she's lovely. But you know, kind of look at yourself through others' eyes and try to see what they see. We're such multifaceted and very, very complex beings, that it's good to kind of take a step back and remember that the way that others perceive us is not always how we perceive ourselves. And so, you know, thinking through those things can sometimes help guide some of those littler decisions along the way too.
Love that. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments for Marie? This has been awesome. Thank you so much. And you did a great job, Marie.
Oh, thank you.